Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to Strong Dads here. We just did, I don't know, about 15 minutes, and Merle decided to...
It wasn't 15 minutes.
Merle was not hitting the record button. So anyways, welcome back to Strong Dads. Hope you guys are having a great week.
Well, I told you in the beginning of the last thing that we thought we were recording that I was tired today. I'm trying to wake up. And as I look down, I see, there's not a record button going in my face here. So we need to start this show over.
We got to start it all over again.
How are you today, Kyle?
I'm so good, so good. What I was mentioning before was I'm pretty excited because our last show we had Officer Tom in here, right?
That's right,
and I'm excited now I can name drop when I get pulled over next time.
Yeah.
When I head out here to record.
You're using it for your own benefit. But you know what? I can't wait to see you try that out on your next little ticketed adventure.
Hey, do you know Officer Tom Moore?
Do you know Lieutenant Moore? Can you get me out of this ticket?
Anyways, yes, check that show out. It was really cool. We had an officer in here, a police officer. Really kind of went through the training aspect of the ins and outs of the policing world. So it was a really cool show. Check that out. It's getting a lot of good listens and views. So really encourage you guys to share the heck out of that show and keep that word going. Specifically,
Tom is an instructor at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, and so we really wanted to try to bust the deceptions and myths and beliefs of when we talk about defunding police, when we talk about police aren't, trained, they're not, to actually talk to the instructor and say, okay, so what is the challenge? And so Tom did a good job. There are challenges for sure. So by no means was Tom looking at us saying, oh, we train perfectly and everything. No, it's
Right.
It's an ongoing process as culture changes, as minds and ideas change. So the process is continual education. So anyway, it's a great show. You got to check that out. Tom does a fantastic job. He's a good man.
Yep. So anyways, what are we going to dive into today, Merle? What are we going to talk about?
So the whole idea on today's show was coming from the idea of schools starting up in our area. And as a dad, as a strong dad, and talking to you dads out there, like, okay, how are we going to motivate our kids? What are we going to expect of them? What are the standards of achievement, right? And so that's kind of where we started talking. You and I were kind of bantering back and forth on different ideas. And we shifted gears quickly because I think this is part of the challenge that we have as strong dads. As Christian strong dads, yes, we want our kids to achieve. So let's just get that out right off the bat. Yeah, we want them to achieve. We want them to win. We want them to be the best they can be. But one of the things that has really been showing its ugly face in the last, probably as long as mankind has been on the earth, but we've seen a lot of it, is the means by which people will go to succeed, to achieve. Yeah. And so we brought in the whole idea of, as strong dads, I can preach achieving all day long, but if I don't have it based on a system of values, then I will drive my kids to win at all costs, to cheat, to steal, to rob, to do whatever shortcut they can, because the achievement is the end goal.
Right.
In our kids' mind, if that's the way we bring them up. And so we really talked about, as our responsibility on this show is put the brakes on and make sure that you understand what you're teaching in terms of values. So basically the show is stop setting standards of achievement and start setting values. Do your kids know what you value in your home?
Yep. So I mean, the kind of the one of the premise behind this idea of the show, I had talked about Nick Saban, who's a coach of Alabama football. He has a video that talks about high achievers, and in the sports world, it's especially to that caliber, that high level, achievement is not that it's everything, but achievement is a big motivator for those guys.
The trophy, right?
Exactly. And so but then you had brought up the idea of bringing it back to the value system, especially when we're talking to our strong dads. And I automatically thought of my parents, like and I've mentioned this on the show before, but my brother and sister are intellectually much smarter than I am. So
they've told me that too, but go ahead.
but if my parents set a one achievement, kind of that you have to get an A in every one of your classes, that achievement, if they would have set that for all three of us, I would have missed that mark all the time.
Right.
So it was more of, how are we going to get there? We're going to put forth the effort of studying to make sure you are prepared for those tests. Mm-hmm. And I think it just goes to the setting those values more so than prioritizing those A's or the achievements in the class. Like we need to make sure our values trump the actual achievement. Obviously, right. Just like you were saying, the achievements are important. We don't want to make it sound like the achievements are not important, because they are. But it's the way in which we're going to get there, and that's where the values really come in.
Right. There's never a shortage of finding cheat cuts.
Cheat cuts, yeah.
That's probably a good way. Yeah, cheat cuts, shortcuts, cheats that can get us to the top faster. So I want to read something here. This was from a pamphlet that was written by the Chief of the General Staff for the British Army, and they were talking about their training for the British Army, and he wrote out this idea of how we have to be thinking as we're training, in this case, the British Army, okay? And so this is how he starts it. He says, values are specific beliefs about what is important and unimportant, good and bad, right and wrong. Values form the basis of how we make judgments and decisions about all we do and do not do. Our standards guide the practical application of our values, ensuring that everything we do is appropriate, lawful, and professional. Teamwork is essential for a strong military force. That whole idea of, if we are just looking at achievement, we will find ourselves eventually fighting even within ourselves. Because that's what does start to actually play within that, no matter what, not only am I going to get the trophy, but I'm going to do it at the expense of my teammates, of others, all of these other things. And so that's kind of the premise of what we're going through today.
I like it. I'm a little disappointed that you had to go to the British Army. I mean, both your older sons are in the United States, military here. It's like you could have come up with it. I'm just kidding.
I don't know where to go with that.
I figured, there's got to be some general out there in our military that talks all about values, and you stoop to the level of the British Army. I can't.
But I just thought it read really well.
I'm just kidding.
It's a good point in the sense of our older son went to the Naval Academy.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Naval Academy from day one runs, at least this is always a backdrop. It doesn't mean it runs perfectly. That's not the point at all. Okay, it's a backdrop, and the backdrop is everything runs on the honor code.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, are you honoring the code of the military, the country, of something bigger than yourself? And so that's kind of the backdrop of things. And when you step out of line, it's like, well, did you honor what we stand for?
Yeah.
And so that is an important point.
Well, it is cool that especially here in America, like our military, we hold our military to a high standard, as I feel like we should. They're the guys, men and women on the front line. We hold them to a high standard, and with that, their values. There's values that come along with those high standards. That if you don't have those value systems, it's going to be really hard to maintain those high standards that the military expects from their personnel.
Right. Well, and they know, like in the military, if I have two guys that are on the same team and they don't value and honor what they're both fighting and how they're going to approach it, they will end up self-destructing.
Sure.
And that's kind of like, okay, we have to get everybody on the same page. And we're going to get into that a little bit with why that's important, even as an entire country. We can agree to disagree on a lot of social issues.
Yep.
But if we don't have the underpinnings of a common value system, we will fight among ourselves. Surprise. That's where we are, right? That's where we are, because we have looked more to achievement and outcomes rather than how are we going about these things.
Yep.
And if we don't, as strong dads, if we don't start in our home, this will continue to basically erode what we are as a civilization.
I like it. We're gonna continue to get into the show. Before we do, let's make sure we thank our sponsors. Strong Dads, we would love to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Casey's premier garden center down there in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Check them out. They got a lot of cool home decor, landscaping needs. For sure, check them out. Again, down there in Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
All right. We also want to thank Crimer's Beer House for sponsoring the Strong Dads podcast. So we want to thank Mark Crimer and his crew down there, located on Route 128 outside of Cleves, Ohio. So go down there and get yourself a great meal and a great atmosphere.
I love it. Cool. So, you were briefly, talking about how when we talk about our standards and having those values and how, my mind automatically went to the sports world. Like I was talking with the Nick Saban, little video that I watched of him. Man, I started thinking about the sports world and how, man, we're talking at high level sports here. So professional athletes and such, man, like even at that level, the best of the best, they're still cheats, and there's still men and women who try and take shortcuts to get to the end results, to that achievement, the trophy that you were talking,
right?
And how that's such a driving force. We're talking the best of the best, and there's still the values are not being upheld because the achievement is held at a higher, it's in their minds, the achievement, the trophy is so much bigger than the actual values of getting there. And you had sent a little clip from Fox Sports. I thought it'd be cool to go through some of the big cheats in the world.
So I want to put a disclaimer out too. I would never ever get on this microphone and tell you I haven't cheated. Okay. Because in fact, you have actually
I have never cheated, Murph. I've never cheated or lied.
And I think that's the challenge here, right? Like, because the standard of achievement, like making the bar, can be such a magnet, like, oh man, I got to do that. I'm attracted to that. And so cheating becomes more and more like a good rational idea.
Yeah.
And so we all fall into it. So even though, we were pointing out like some of these, the idea that it can really take on wings and start to fly is something we've got to be able to address. And we start it young with our kids. And so, by no means are you talking or listening to two dudes here that are like, holier than thou, Mr. Virtues here. We struggle as well, but we have a responsibility to teach these kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about, I have a hard time bringing this one up. It would have been easier for me to bring this up about 3 or 4 years ago.
All right.
But I have developed a large respect for Tom Brady. Tom Brady is one of these guys who's come under the gun, and specifically for the deflate gate, right?
Yeah.
Like where he was accused of deflating the pressure in the ball because it would make it a little bit easier to grip and to throw, especially when the hands were cold. And so that was a big like, oh yeah, well, I could throw a ball 300 yards too if I could deflate the ball, and all this stuff.
Yep.
But it was, everybody looking for a reason. But again, it was potentially a shortcut to getting a win a little bit easier. So
which again is crazy because Tom is at the top of his game, right? He's as good as it gets, and it's crazy to think, And then when you look at the sidelines with Bill Belichick, his coach and
Mr. Spygate,
Mr. Spygate, and this one, I don't know. I mean, like I could see. This being a viable option as a coach if they have the ability to essentially videotape what the coordinators are doing on the sideline. Like, I don't know, that one's a little. I mean, Kyle, I'm falling into
you're falling in. You got to back out, go run for your life.
The value is you should not cheat, right? Moving on to some of the other ones that were in that, man. I remember the big Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, like the big home run chase to see who can get the most home runs, the Barry Bonds of the world.
These guys,
and it comes out and they're juicing, right? They're putting steroids.
Right.
I mean, I know Sammy Sosa got in trouble for corking his bat.
Yeah.
I mean, we had there was a Reds player that got in trouble for corking his bat, didn't it? What, a few years ago?
I don't know. Gosh, there's been so many.
What is Chris Sabo? I think it was Chris Sabo.
He got pine tar or something.
Yeah,
Wasn't it? Tar on the bat or something
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we look at these guys and they're just doing things to just get the edge just a little bit. And there's always that edge. Like, you and I are golfing. And, man, if I can drop down a few more bucks for a club that's going to get me a few yards on you, oh, man. And that's not cheating, right? It's not cheating. But I'm definitely willing to hedge it a little bit. Yeah. And so I don't really have enough money to catch him at this point.
Well, you bring up a great the golfing one. This is something that I've been playing golf for a long time, and golf is one of those sports you can get away with cheating all day long. Like, you walk in there, you got a ball in your pocket, and you just throw it on the outside when you hit one of the woods. And this has been something that I have tried to, because I love the sport of golf so much,
right.
And I can make my score drop quite a few strokes. But it's one of those personal things that I will not cheat in golf. Like if I get an 8 on a hole, I get an 8 on the hole. I laugh about it, then move on. And golfing is one of those that, if I play with somebody and they want to cheat, like whatever, it doesn't bother me because I'm confident in my score, and I know that the score that I have. Again, it would really suck, right? If a guy I know I'm better than, he cheats and he gets a better score. But at the end of the day, I'm like, the values that I have when it comes to my game, I'm like, I'm gonna hold to them.
Yeah. One of the all-time great cheats in my mind, just because of like you like golf. I like cycling. I've mentioned before I watch the Tour de France every year.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get too crazy in following all of it, but I just enjoy it. I like the challenge of the ride. I fell completely into the following of the days of Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
Because one, you don't see Americans flourish in cycling, especially on the international level. You just don't see it. Okay. There's been Greg LeMond, and then there was Lance Armstrong, and then we had a few small, Floyd Landis and stuff like that. Armstrong was like, man, this guy's incredible, 7 wins. And it did get pretty suspicious there. Like, wow, how can he keep doing this? Because nobody does this. And he started having these feats of incredible achievement. And it was like, when you smell a rat, eventually you look hard enough, you're going to find one. And it really was disappointing. It was disappointing. And I know, listen, I still continue to follow some of his work. And he goes back to the idea of, listen, everybody was doing it. And that still, as a strong dad, that cannot be our fall down excuse. Well, everybody was doing it. You don't understand. At the end of the day, if your kid told you that is the reason why they cheated, you wouldn't buy it, and we can't buy it. And so, listen, I don't wish anything bad on like Lance Armstrong or anything like that, but it was definitely a win at all costs, at any cost. And that's something that really made the entire sport suffer and continues to suffer.
Yep. And that's what you were saying about just because everyone else is doing it and the values that we want to teach our kids. Man, this is going to be a hard one. I know just growing up and seeing peer pressure and seeing other people doing certain things and then you just fall into it. Man, when we're talking to our kids about achievements and standards and how standards and our values should trump achievements, it's going to be a hard conversation. And I've not gotten to the point where I've had those conversations with my girls yet, but I know those conversations are coming because the win at all costs type mentality is out there, and it is something that my girls are gonna fall into. They're gonna have struggles where they're gonna want to win at all costs, and for Jenny and I to be able to take a step back and say, in this house when we talk about values, these are the things that we prioritize, and if that means you come second, third, fourth, if that means you don't even get on the podium,
right,
then that's what that means. But at the end of the day, like, we have to be able to say our standards that we set for this house, our values, trump our achievements, and that's gonna be a tough conversation to have with our girls.
Yeah, especially when they see other people getting things that they want and maybe see it done not quite in the right way, right? And it just like envy and jealousy starts to creep up in our bones, and we start to second guess ourselves. You know, I even outside of the sport realm, and I certainly do not want to get into the political conversation, but I've watched. You know, when you think about socioeconomic structures, you typically think of capitalism, socialism, and communism. And I really we've been blessed and benefited from the capitalistic structure, but it really isn't even capitalism, socialism, or communism that should scare us as much as the value system that underpins that. Because we have seen in our own country that if you take a capitalist that does not have a good value system, they will achieve at the expense of anything and everything. All right. And so that's where you get these huge fraud scandals and just the greed that comes through. If you see communism and you do not have a value system for the people, you will see incredible oppressiveness and dictatorship and just the people being basically used as slaves for the sake of a few. And so, and socialism in the middle somewhere, and it's that whole idea, wait, it doesn't even really matter if you really want to get picky about this. And capitalism provides the greatest opportunity for people to thrive. But if it's not based in a value system that we're talking about, you see many of the things that we see in our own country today. And if we as strong dads don't start having these conversations, you know, our politicians, I don't know anybody that trusts their local politician anymore, right? Why is that? That's a problem. And we should recognize that is a problem. You know, a politician, more than them being trained anymore and being a lawyer or whatever, we need to make sure that they're trained well in values and that we can trust their values. And then once they have that, then we can get them out there to do policy making and stuff like that. But anymore, that has been definitely something we just go, oh, well, whatever it takes to get the job done. We don't care how they get it done, and we're paying for that.
Which you know, man, I think that leads us right into kind of our next segue into this show. When we talk about achievements versus our standards, man, I think especially when we talk about the political aspect of our world, man, achievement looks different. It's a moving target. And I mean, you know, whether it goes, I need to get elected, whether I need to get elected for 2 terms, whatever the case may be, I feel like that achievement is a moving target where hopefully when we're talking to you strong dads, man, our values have to be set in stone and they can't be wavering, because when we waver on our values, that's when the idea of achievements creep in and being more important. Because if your values are changing with the climate that we're currently in, all that says is that, and we all fall into it, myself included, it's like, you know, I can have values, but at the end of the day, I also love to win, right? I love to win, but those values have to set the precedence, and they can't be wavering, because the achievement is an ever-changing thing in this world.
Yeah, so let's talk about, like, all right, how do I know how I'm currently operating in my house and how I need to start to shift this? And this gets back into, we're going to make no apologies for this. This is where our Christian understanding and Christian values come from. You said, you know, I am competitive, like I want to win, right? And worldly values are just those kinds of things. Like I want wealth. I want power. I want influence. I want to seek my fleshly pleasures. My gosh, how many shows have we done where we've talked about fleshly pleasures? I want fame, vanity, status. You know, I want these things. I want to win. All right, those are human. And again, it's understanding, like, well, that's just how humans are. But that's the next tier up, is to not be of human nature, but to be of God's nature. And that's what we're called to do if we are going to have a successful community, family, even society.
Yep. And a lot of those things I know it's easy to fall into as a man. Like, I feel like pride always creeps its ugly head.
Yeah.
And it really is. I mean, when we talk about placing, higher, value on achievement versus our standards, I think it's because of pride, because pride creeps in, which, when we talk about having biblical principles and Christian faith, like, that is a token of God. Like, you have to set your pride aside. And one of the first things is, man, worshiping God alone. Like, and it is so easy because when we talk about those achievements, things like money and fame, like you were talking about, those come in. And when we say that those are more important, when we worship those over God, man, like, it's a natural thing that's going to happen because God is all about servant, and he's all about, put me first, everything else second. And when you start talking about those achievements, when you start to place those have more of a standard and a value in your life than the actual values and the standards of what godly principles look like, when we start to do that, when we worship other things ahead of God, naturally we're going to fall into those prideful things that you were just talking about.
Man, you hit the nail on the head with that. Is pride is when I'm on the throne and he's not, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I have to be right. Mm-hmm. And so that is our pride. And so the idea here in the foundation, and that's why it's one of the primary 10 commandments, we worship one God, and that is who we bow to. And so if you struggle with that is going to be a huge, huge obstacle, because then who are you going to set up on the throne? In other words, who are you going to look to for your guidance and for you to serve and work for? So great point. I think the second value or commandment that we're looking at here is the whole idea of loving people, right? So teaching our kids, like, first off, okay, listen, we bow down to God here in our home. Mm-hmm. So, and talking about that a little bit is one of the big signs that we can give our kids that basically confuse them. We bow down to God, but you know what? We don't ever go to a church anymore. We go out and play ball every weekend at tournaments. Mm-hmm. We go play golf. We go do this. We go do that. Well, what's the message, And if the very first one is out of line, it's going to be hard to get the other ones to sink into your kids. So humbling yourself to say, I don't get to do exactly what I want to do today. I need to do something greater. And so the second one then, once we love God, is to love people, right? And, I mean, we're called to do that. And that is not comfortable a whole lot of times, right?
Never.
It's not what I want to do a lot of times.
Yeah. One of these next ones, Jenny and I, we try and really, really harp on this one and really drive this one home with our girls, is the idea of being honest. Man, this one, Jenny always tells the girls, like, what is hidden will become known. And when our girls, they're 6 and 8, so naturally there's a little bit of fibbing, a little bit of lying that goes on in our house. Like, we always tell our girls, like, you have to be honest. Like, right. All else, you have to be honest. You have to tell the truth. When there's a wrongdoing, you have to call it out for what it is. And if you're the one that's doing the wrong, like, we have to be honest with ourselves and be like, all right, I messed up here. Mm-hmm. And that is a biblical principle. Like, we are called to be,
own it.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And just being honest with each other, being honest with yourself, that is something that Jenny and I really try and make sure in our home is something that is a forefront when it comes to our value systems. And the hope is that our girls will go out and it'll be so much easier to make friends and keep friends if you're just honest with them. Because one of the big, I know growing up, when you start lying to your friends and you're not being honest with them, I mean, you're not going to keep those friends very long.
Right. Another one, and you think about that when you think about friends and you think about teams, is the understanding of what it is to be humble. When we are humble, we give credit to all of the other entities that are involved, whether it's a team, a coach, another person, our parents. And that humbleness allows us to know where we stand, not necessarily always at the front of the line, but somewhere in that line in terms of our success. And so teaching that humility is extremely important. When your kids come home and they play the game and they can't quit talking about how I did this, I did that, you don't need to slam them down on the ground. You just need to look at them and say, hey, tell me about what your other teammates did today.
Yeah.
Tell me how they helped you get that done. Tell me what your coach did, so that they start to understand that they're not great in and of themselves.
Yep. That makes me think. I've obviously being in the sports world and my absolute love for it, man. It is so cool to see like college basketball when we're in March Madness, which is my favorite time of year. March Madness. It is so cool to watch the bench and see these players who are not on scholarship, they're walk-ons, and they are some of the loudest people on the bench, cheering for their team, rooting. And how easy would it be to sit there and just cross your arms and I'm pissed off because I'm not getting my playing time, and just that idea that it's all about me, and the flip of that, to watch these guys, just even some of the players who are still on scholarship, who are not getting the playing time that they think that they deserve or they're hoping for, but to see them on the bench rooting for their team and cheering them on,
right,
I think is a great, golly, we could point to that and say that's what you should be like when you're not in the spotlight, when the camera's not turned on you, man, you still have to support your team. You still have to be rooting for your team, making sure that you're doing whatever, even if it's in practice, even when it's not the game time, when you're pushing the people, on your team, when you're making the best out of your teammates, man, that's a teammate that you want on your team.
Yeah, there are great stories about people that have basically been in the background in the locker room, so to speak. I think it was Bernie Stowe who basically took care of the clubhouse for the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay.
Basically making sure the laundry's done, the towels are set up, the training tables are all cleaned up, and how he was just absolutely committed to doing whatever he could do behind the scenes so that these players didn't have to worry about that stuff. And, over the years, people began to realize, like, wow, like he's an anchor in our success.
And isn't that cool that people notice when you're in the minority? Like, that is not a thing that a lot of people are doing. And I think that goes for this whole show. Man, if you find yourself in the minority when you're teaching your kids about values over achievements, because you're going to be in the minority when it comes to that, man, that's such a good place to be, because it goes back to the biblical principles, because God isn't always, he's not exactly, if you didn't know this, God isn't exactly, at the forefront of our society. Our society is not exactly saying, God is number one, right? And so when you find yourself in the minority when it comes to teaching our kids about values over achievement, man, that's a good place to be. We want to be there, because that is what's going to make you look different. Not that, that again, you could say, well, I want people to notice that I look different in the world, and that pride issue comes back in. But if you want to be different, if you want the world to notice something's different about you and it's because of Christ, man, be in the minority when it comes to this.
Yeah. I mean, these are the different kinds of things, guys. Just teaching your kids the integrity of life, of a Christian life, are so important, because once those are established, then you will be able to trust, and they will be able to trust themselves with their achievements later in life. This is how we see young kids turn into adults, that whether they've made a lot of money or had a lot of success, they know where it came from. They know what to do with it and how to handle it, versus those who come by it the cheap way now are so overwhelmed by it. That's why celebrity status tends to blow people's life away, because they did not understand. They thought that they were the ones who achieved all of this, and now they just flushed it all on themselves. And there's no surprise here that why celebrity marriages, success, winning the lottery, that these are things that typically lead to destruction. And it is because of the value system that is not supporting the achievement or the win. All right. And so teaching your kids these values is so much more critical. So in our case, we had school starting up. Listen, I want my kids to achieve. I want them to win. But first and foremost, we are quick to call them out when we see values that are questionable. Them taking shortcuts, them trying to cheat. Again, just like their dad, right? Because those are the things you have to fight. Those are the things that just make it easier. So that doesn't give us an excuse to say, well, I do it, so I can't call them out. No, I don't want them to do some of the stupid things that I've done. I see how it's been wrong. So you don't beat yourself up over that. It's not about being self-righteous. It's about being righteous in God's eyes and teaching your kids, like, hey, this is a big deal. We're not, ultimately here, we're not looking for the win today. We're looking for an eternal win. And even if we play well by the values of God, we will see a win in our life. We just do. We see families stick together. We see greater successes in life. And that's another reason why we continue to do what we do. We see it pans out right here in real time in this life, okay? And so, but the ultimate win here is an eternal win and seeking heaven. So do not shortchange the time that you spend on talking values. And when you see your kid being tempted, and even you being tempted by, oh man, if we could just get the edge by doing this, drop back and think about, okay, is this glorifying God?
Yeah. And just exactly what you were saying. I was getting ready to say, man, at the end of the day, like, if your kids fall into this trap, if you yourself, like, if those thoughts come in, they creep in, man, one of the biggest biblical principles we can teach our kids is forgiveness. Like, if your kids fall into that, to be able to set them aside and be like, hey, you messed up here, right?
Right.
Daddy's messed up many a times, right? But we have to forgive our kids and let them know that at the end of the day, like, no matter what my girls do in their life, Mom and Daddy will always love you. And more important than that, God will always love you because He forgave us, right? So how can we sit there and not forgive our kids for falling into wanting achievements over values when we ourselves have done that? But that's exactly that's what God is. That's why I know I need God in my life, because I am a sinful man. I mess up daily. Like, I fall into the idea of achievement over values daily, and it's a daily struggle to want to make sure that those values are at the forefront, not the achievement. So, man, I think at the end of the day, if we can do nothing else for our kids, if we can forgive them, I think is a huge thing. Again, falling into the minority, we will look different if we continue to forgive our kids for when they do mess up, and we forgive ourselves because God has forgiven us.
Yeah, thank God for the values that He has of forgiveness, mercy, and grace. And those are the things that allow us to have second chances. Those are the things that allow your kid to know that even though they may have gone off the rails a bit, that it's not over. There's always that opportunity to come back. But to do that, you have to put God on the throne. And so that's the lesson that we keep on trying to teach. So, hey, hopefully you strong dads out there, you see this as a good reminder of, what, we need to emphasize these things in our home and with our kids, and we back off on some of the standards of achievement, providing that we are working strongly on the value building.
I like it. Yeah. So, I mean, I would say, this week, for you strong dads out there, talk to your wife, like, start setting some biblical values in your household. Discuss that with your wife, and then, start to implement those throughout the weeks and months to come. Obviously, we get back to the school. Sports are going to be starting back up. Sports are always a great time to teach lessons and values with our kids and instilling those. Man, just make sure that what we're doing, you're doing it together, because if one parent is saying one value is important, and the other parent is saying the opposite, man, just come together with that. Seek out some biblical guidance. Obviously here at Rock Solid Families, you and Linda would love to come alongside of any of you guys out there, any strong dads, needing advice, needing just, I call you a couple times a week and vent. And, man, if you need that, like, seek that out. It's out there. It is there for you guys. If you need help, seek it.
Yes, you have to know that when you call Rock Solid Families and to try to get counsel or advice in any way, part of our deal, you got to know you're calling regular people who struggle with the exact same things that you do. And so that is why we try to keep that Bible present. And when people challenge us with, like, I got this thing going on, we want to be quick to say, well, I don't know, what's God's word say about that?
Yep.
Like, what would honor God's word? Because I know if I were in your shoes, this is what I'd want to do. and that's the constant battle. So be real with yourself and understand that that's what we try to do. But the idea that we have a system that of checks and balances through his word. So feel free to give us a call. Our number is 812-576-7625. Do us a favor, share our shows, subscribe to these channels, get this out there, guys. These are just great messages that continue to help build our family and ultimately our society. So we want to thank you guys for hanging in there and listening with us and sharing our shows.
I learned something about YouTube. That if you hit the bell notification, that every time one of our shows pops up, you'll be notified of it. Did you know that?
Yeah, I kind of did know that. Yeah,
there's a little bell there, so hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
Hit the bell. Yeah. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for Kramer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Have a good week. Go out there and be some strong dads.
I am going to beat you this week in golf, though. You and I are going head to head this week. You know that? At all costs, dog. You're going down.
We're going to have to play together then, so you don't cheat.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Kramer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Kramer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Kramer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Kramer's Beer House.